It's time for the Fanatic Flyers
Mics are hot.
Flyers Broadcast Network. Here's Jason Martinez, Brian Smith, and Chris Terrian.
That's right. It's time for Philadelphia Flyers hockey. How about a little Monday night Flyer Penguin action here at Wells Fargo Center? That's not a bad way to start.
Welcome to a week's worth of not knowing what day it is.
I know. Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. What are we doing here? This is bizarro land.
Yeah.
It's Jason Martinez, Brian Smith, and Chris Terrian. And, buddy, before we get into the particulars from this night's game, I want to get into what happened here on Saturday. Because I thought that the Ed Snyder 91st birthday tribute was very tastefully done.
Yeah.
And it was something we have not seen in a couple of years, certainly nothing to that extent. And it feels like almost the ribbon cutting, the official ribbon cutting on this new era in a lot of ways.
You know what? I don't want to traverse back in time anymore, Jason, but the fans, the alumni, the community, the team went through 5 years of almost hell in terms of trying to get things going. And when the clock switched back over, things reverted back to normalcy and the sanity took place again. But the other day, I put it on my Twitter and Facebook. That was the best post-playing day that I've been around. I've been probably done over 1,000 radio games, several hundred TV, both pregame, post, and also live. That was the single best broadcast, podcast, day at the game that I've had in Philadelphia. And Dan Hilferty, Jonesy, Briere should be thanked. Ed Snyder would have been extremely proud of that event. And you know what? It was packed with orange and black. It was a big old Philadelphia Flyers party and a celebration. And you know what is even better? They're not doing it 1 year. They're going to do it every year, and they should.
What do you think? They win the game too. Mr. Snyder, your tribute was great and everything, but did we win?
Did you win?
Yeah, and it was a little nasty too.
Yeah.
So that's really the part about it that was the best. It had a little bit of everything in it, and that whole day did. Like, I mean, they even your show to open, the Snow the goalie. We had great guests. We had like Johnny LeClaire, Cindy Stutman, Ike Richmond, Dan Hilferty. And the list goes on and on. Serena Snyder. And then I pulled my own kids on the broadcast, because that's really what this was about. It was about family. It was about community. It was about the spirit of the Philadelphia Flyers and why people, congregate down here for many, many, many years to watch hockey and watch the joy that it brought Mr. Snyder. It was a great day. I'm glad you mentioned it, Jason, because it's going to be.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's going to be a day I think everybody is going to be longing to get tickets for years to come. It was an unbelievable day. And I just felt leaving that building that Ed Snyder had a little twinkle in his eye saying, wow, that was really cool. Thanks, guys. And he would love that. He would have loved it.
And I guess the one thing I'll add and bring up from your perspective, Bundy, is that, it's not just lip service for me. For me, it's important that the young core of this team, they were out there watching it. All the people that weren't here when Mr. Snyder was running things, that they see this and use it to kind of like learn how the Flyers way is, because the fact of the matter is he's not going to be back. And so, he kind of lives on in all of our memories that work with him, but we're going to have to pass that along in order to keep that alive.
And I think, and again, what the difference for me is that in a lot of ways, the leader at the very top, Dan Hilferty, has embodied the spirit of Mr. Snyder with the scholarship that he just gave on the spot the other day from someone. Hockey. So when you there'll never be another Ed Snyder, but if you can replace the sliver with that embodiment that exists in Dan Hilferty, man, what a great year this has been. Even me, guys, and I've always been roses last 3 years, and I'll tell you what, one of the great joys of my life has been back in this building this year. It's been that important and that special.
Yeah, it really was great, and I totally agree with you. It was like seeing the crowd from the top row to on the glass of Flyer fans. Like, Calgary fans can't just bop over and raid your building. They're from Calgary, for goodness sake. That was Flyer fans packing this place, and they got to see one hell of a hockey game, too.
It was a great game. Great
game. I mean, Bunny, I just wish those two teams could play again soon, again this season.
Yeah.
That was a good start.
And then, the hope is as we go down the pike here, they'll start to develop things like that. You'll start seeing a couple of these teams a couple extra times. I mean, tonight's one of them. I mean, these two teams have played 2 overtime games. The Flyers have won both of them. You got to imagine
Shootout.
the Penguins are a little
Yeah.
bit peeved by that. So
Shootout and OT.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see them come out with a chip on their shoulder today.
Yeah, and they're a weird team, kind of. Right? They've lost 2 in a row at home, but I think they squeezed out a win at Boston in like a real high-scoring affair, split between those games. They had a great run going into the New Year's Day, then it kind of went the other way on them. So they're kind of looking to regroup. It's funny, guys. Like it was like a little bit over a month ago, maybe a month that we saw Pittsburgh and how things have changed a little bit. They didn't know where they were at the time, but now their record is, I think it's 19-15-4 off the top of my head, and they've kind of turned the corner. But again, these are these points that come down today when you look at a game like this. 2 teams very much in the hunt in the Metro. If you can get the 2 points in regulation, that's a real bonus. But man, you got to find ways coming down the stretch where you have to get points in games like this. Yeah, absolutely mandatory if you're going to be that team that's going to be in the top 8.
It's hard to believe they're only 4 points back of the Flyers, but with a game in hand to boot. But they're in the 7th spot. The Flyers are in the 3rd spot. We know how close this race is from 2 through 7 in the division right now. That's why that 2 points on Saturday in regulation didn't matter if it was in regulation or not against Calgary, but very important 2 points. But yeah, I got to ask you about a couple of guys in particular. And I want to start with this guy because there was no bigger question mark going into this season than the top pair of defensemen. You lose Provorov, all the minutes he played, you could count on him being in the lineup. And you're going, okay, Travis Sanheim's going to move up and grab the right side, where he hasn't played a ton at the NHL level, coming off what was, conservatively speaking, a down year. And then Cam York didn't make the team out of camp last year. Torts really didn't like his second half of his year last year. And those two are going to be your top pair guys, play over 22 minutes a night. But they have both come in and answered the bell, not just with some offensive contributions, but defensively. What have you seen out of Cam York that's been making him been able to succeed playing alongside Travis Sanheim?
Really good stick. That's what he's done. And again, I think it's so much of a lost art, but such an important one. Even when I was playing, I remember looking back and thinking of Craig Ramsey or Roger Nielsen. They said, the most valuable asset you have, Bundy, is your stick. You get a good stick. And then, of course, I had probably the greatest stick man on puck defenseman in the history of the game in Eric Desjardins, who was just a master of it. So I learned, and that's something that a young guy, I'll tell you what, it becomes invaluable as you get older. But his willingness to play harder, to block shots. He blocked a shot the other night, took a heavy hit at one point. And I still think there's more there. I do think there's more there offensively. I think there's another gear to his game, and that probably won't be discovered until he takes the next step, whatever that is.
Yeah, I've felt like he's kind of growing, not necessarily, he is growing in his ability on the ice and his execution, but it's almost like we see his maturity growing before our eyes too, just in the way he's handled himself during games, on the bench, away from the puck, things like that. It's something that I'm not sure I've seen it happen in season with a player before. Sometimes a guy goes away in the offseason, he comes back, feels like a different guy, but this seems to be happening, right as this season goes on with this kid.
He's definitely improved. He had a calling. Remember Torts said beginning, he said, I'm not even sure if the guy was an NHL player, right, Jason? Is that what he said beginning of the season?
That was a bit extreme, but yeah. By Torts.
Yeah, it could have just been Torts being Torts, right? But at the same time, but the player's got to hear that. He's got to absorb it, then he's got to try to make a play with it, right? When you're dealing with it. That's not easy, right? Because as soon as a coach says it, you're asking yourself, am I? I don't know.
That was a first-round pick.
Well, yeah, I know, but there's a lot of first-round picks. Jordan Rubsoff, I'm not going to say any others, but that just never play a game.
Oh, I could rattle some.
Oh, yeah, you could rattle a whole pile of them, yeah. Anyway, it happens, and but you know what? He's made strides, and Sanheim has had, again, another guy that seems like it's him against a lot of the world, and, what went on this summer. But I commend guys for that ability to, play through that. It's hard. Yeah. And then you got to find, but it makes you tougher. It doesn't kill you. It'll make you tougher.
Yeah. Torts may have said that for an audience of one. The one in New York. For sure. All right, let's take our first time out here on the pregame show. It's always a special day when it's Flyers Penguins, and it's exactly that tonight. We kick off the week in style. Stay tuned. We're back after this. Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. We're back live to Wells Fargo Center. It's the Flyers and the Penguins renewing a rivalry once again here tonight and kicking off the week in style. These two teams fighting for footing in the division. And, of course, they played a couple of games back on December 2nd and December 4th. It was a home and home.
Yeah.
Started in Pittsburgh. You mentioned the Flyers get that shootout win there against Tristan Jarry. And then they get the overtime win here. It was actually on a Monday night, as a matter of fact, against Nedeljkovic. 2-1, that one in overtime. So looking to beat this team for a third straight time. No easy task.
It is not. Yeah, I mean, it's especially when they've been that close, right? It's a situation right now, those 4 points that you're talking about, if those two games go the other way, those 4 points are flipped around the other way, and Pittsburgh knows it. And so it's one of those, 4-point games, the quintessential ones that, a lot of times now there's 3 points given out in these games, and it's one of those things where there's going to be a lot of these on the back end against other teams. So it's really, really important to get these for both sides here tonight. And I think you'll see a little bit of an extra edge there just because of that. Yeah. Sorry. You can talk now.
No problems. We're, of course, here at the beautiful Benton Rivers bar area at section 106, 107. And anytime we come here, there's always a group of people that wants to say hello. So we get pulled aside.
It's public.
Sometime. Yeah. I was a state senator of Pennsylvania. That was a good friend. I just got to take a picture, Jason. That's why I was late coming back.
Wow.
The 3-point game. So you know what's
I thought
interesting?
it was Marty Brodeur for a minute.
Yeah, the 3-point game is interesting because what happens is if you have a cushion, right? If you have a 4 or 5 point cushion, you're in. You have a lot more of wiggle room. If you're on the outside of the box looking into the top 8, it's almost like it seems like you got to win twice as many games to get back up.
Impossible.
It's almost impossible. And then the 3-point games play to your favor if you're in. If you're out, they work against you. It seems like just the way it goes.
And you remember when the Flyers had to do that in the the mid 2010s. Every other year they're doing that, and then by the time you get to the playoffs, you're just gassed.
Yep.
Because you've been playing playoff hockey for 2 months.
Yep. And that's very, very true. And that's part of it. That's very much part of it, where your team has to play, in 60 days in a playoff mode. I mean, there's teams that have had good success doing that. Look at Florida last year. Mm-hmm. They end up rewarding themselves by playing more of an aggravated style prior to, April 15th. Boston Bruins was a complete opposite side of the spectrum of that because they fell apart when the playoffs started and they couldn't get their mojo back.
I've always been fascinated about how you have to peak at the right time. If you're playing well in January, you're kind of screwed unless you
or you have a goaltender.
Keep it up. Or you have a
goaltender. Yeah, I've always believed we're a long way from that, and hopefully we're talking about it. But a lot of time in the spring, you go as far as your goaltender is willing to take you sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah. Bundy, let me ask you about the cumulative effect of playing so many one-goal games and so many tight games. I mean, when I look as far back as Nashville on December 12th, that was a 3-2 OT loss and a 4-3 shootout win, then a 1-0 win against Detroit, a 3-2 win in overtime. Just all these tight games. There's so many of them. And is there a cumulative effect to that mentally can wear you down?
You know what? I think what happens is you're going into games thinking you're ready to play because you're always going to be mentally in your head, mentally prepared to play. But I think where games like this can come up and catch you is when you just see the game play and then you're like, oh my God, what happened to the team on the ice? Because that's what happens. It's just you don't have enough practice time. You don't have enough semblance to get everything kind of regrouped again after a handful of games. There's no practice time this month. None.
3.
3 days of practice.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and even then, you're not really able to do much.
No,
you can't skate, guys. Conditioning that
around a little bit, and that's it.
The conditioning part of the season's done, and it's a matter of just staying up with it. But those are important. And again, you're going to have games where you can plan as much as you want to be as good as you can, but you're just not going to be some nights, and that's the way it is. It happens to every team. So again, but that's why to me, Jace, those division games are that much more meaningful. Hence the game against Pittsburgh here tonight.
That was one of the things too that John Tortorella says that as well. That you're not going to have it every night, but it's we were talking today that he's got a little bit of Ed Snyder in him, and that he hates to lose so much that even though he knows they're coming, that when they come, he's not happy about it. Never happy about them. Poor Jason had to do an interview with him last week after the Calgary game, and it just it's. It grates on him, but you know that it's coming. It's just a matter of how quickly you turn it around, just like the Flyers seem to have turned around the funk they were in last week. It was only 4 or 5 games. Now they're back at it.
Yeah. I mean, I would expect any coach or player to be frustrated after a loss.
Yeah.
The thing is I think Torts, just like everybody else, kind of recognizes those spots in the schedule where it's going to be very difficult, but he's still not going to allow it to be an excuse.
Right.
You can't.
Every team's got it. You got to deal with it.
And there's nights where he knows it's an excuse, but you can't give the team that win.
Yep, he's never going to admit it.
Once you give him a little edge, a little freak in the door, you'd be surprised how many people take advantage of something like that.
Yeah, I think some guys, and I think
Some
in
do.
years past, Bundy, there was leadership that said, okay, we're supposed to lose this game, and they were fine with losing it. There's a different. Good teams don't do that.
There's teams in the past where they'd be down a goal, it was a good game, and you just knew they were never going to come back.
Yeah.
Now that's not the case.
Yeah. Big time. Let's take our last time out here on the pregame show. We'll give you the line combinations and all the details as the Flyers get set to take on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Sidney Crosby not leading the way in points. He's headed to the All-Star game. We'll talk about him as well. Flyers, Penguins at the top of the hour. We're back after this on Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com. Flyers Broadcast Network.
This is
Florida State
Flyers pregame show on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Back live at the Wells Fargo Center. It's Jason Martinez, Chris Tarian, Brian Smith. Flyers, Penguins coming up at the top of the hour. Tim Saunders and Todd Fedoruk. And not leading the way for the Penguins in points is Sidney Crosby. He's played in all 38 of their games, 22 goals, 19 assists, 41 points. Only Gensel has more. And Bundy, while we've seen Alex Ovechkin in particular this year slow down a touch and his efficacy as an NHL forward and goal scorer, we have yet to see that from Sidney Crosby. I think he's adapted his game and the way he plays it in some ways over the years, but we're still seeing an extremely effective player from the three-time Cup champ.
Well, he's smart, and like I said last broadcast, I mean, he could probably play in this type of league till he's 50. And if he really wanted to, I mean, I'm not saying it, but like that, I doubt he will, but he could if he wanted. And he's just smart enough. You know, it's amazing, actually, Jace, because I would have thought his point total would have been up a little higher than that, even a little bit more than just a point a game. He's at 39 and 38. I would have thought that would have been closer to 46. But again, you know, he's not working with the kind of, you know, up and down talent that team once had. They have different types of talent, but Sidney Crosby is a great hockey player. He's competitive. So he's going to have pride in himself on most nights, and he's certainly a guy. You know, we saw it last time in the back-to-back here. He did not have a good game at home in Pittsburgh. Yet here in Philadelphia, he was the guy that got the first goal for the Penguins, albeit a loss. But he still showed up, and I think we all knew that night that he was going to show up and be a factor in the game. And so with them losing last game and a couple 2 out of 3 losses to start the 2024 season, I would expect him again in a place that he's had a lot of success and enjoys playing in. To have a strong game today, and the Flyers will have to be ready for him.
I look at another guy that obviously became famous in the Penguins uniform in Jaromir Jagr. I mean, you played against him obviously in the first half of his career, which is still going on apparently overseas. Do you recall anything about how he changed his game as the years went on that allowed him to continue to play well into his 40s, or was it just showing up at midnight at the skate zone and lifting?
He's still more talented than 99% of the players in the league.
Yeah.
So
The
that
game changed while he played over his years a lot, too.
Yeah.
It did. It opened it up. I mean, he played really when you talk about like the meat and potatoes of the years where guys could just kill him, like take a run at him and hit him. And then he played in the era here where there was less hitting, like in terms of the game started to open up a little bit more flow and skating. But, I mean, I'm glad for these guys tonight he's not playing. And
he's playing somewhere, Bundy. It's just not in the NHL.
But I'm glad he's not in like his 1998 gear anymore. Those were
with that Jofa helmet on.
Oh yeah,
that old Jofa
bucket. NHL 95 Yager,
mullet coming out the back. Actually, you think about it's funny when you look about it. I mean, probably the most despised player in Philadelphia. You come here for 1 year and people are like, oh, he's a nice guy.
Oh God, I wish. Remember that line of him, Hartsey, and Giroux? I mean, I would have liked to have seen that line together for another year or two. That was just a fun line. I don't know. It was just fun to watch.
Yeah, there's a lot of players that could have come here for 1 year and changed their history of dislike in this town if they would have just played here for a year.
I'll tell you one thing. I'll toss a personal story in there. My kid was doing junior reporters at that time. He was like 10 years old. I don't know. And I've been around this game for a long time. There's not a whole lot that would faze me, but I walk around the corner at Skate Zone and I see him talking to Yager, and I just kind of stopped in my tracks. It's like, oh my God, look at this. He taught him how to say hello and check, and it's a nice little memory.
Surprised you could find your kid around Yager's rump. He's one of the biggest hockey asses I've ever seen.
Watch out, it's a deadly weapon.
Yes.
Yep.
Bundy found his way around it quite a bit.
Let's
get to the Flyer line combinations. Top line remains unchanged. Couturier centering Farabee and Konechny. Lawton centering Owen Tippett and Cam Atkinson. Frost, Forster, and Brink. Paling, Delaurier, and Hathaway. What'd you think of Atkinson in his return, Big Al?
Good. Just couldn't score.
Yeah, he had two great chances, didn't he?
He played fine. He did everything he could to get himself 2 golden opportunities to score. It didn't happen. So build on it tonight. Maybe tonight's the night that he pushes through. But you know what? Both him and Frost were far more competitive the other night. I mean, they were much better hockey players on the ice to watch.
I know you weren't. You had other skills than scoring goals. We'll put it that way. But you've been around guys probably that for some reason all of a sudden it feels like you're shooting a soccer ball. You just can't get it through the goalie. I don't know what it is. Is it mental? Is it mechanics? You think?
Snake bit, that's what happens. I used to laugh when a guy would be like, you only had 29 goals in your whole career. I'd look at him and go, how many do you have?
You had to have played in the league to get one, Bozo.
It's my favorite. Be a good one tonight, boys.
Yeah.
You know what? No, I think, what tonight, though, is going to come down, I think, to really a top-line matchup for the Flyers tonight. If you can keep that Crosby line at bay, I think they're going to have a good chance. But they're going to have to dig in. Because I have a feeling that 87 is going to have himself be prepared for a big night again tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be Crosby, Gensel, and Raquel. Flyers D pairs. York, Sanheim, Sealer, Walker, Zamula, Ristolainen. Hart gets the start for the Flyers. Nedeljkovic for Pittsburgh. Bundy, quick 15-second capsule on Zamula's improved play.
Much more poise, making better passes. His first pass has been far better. Looks like he's gotten some confidence from playing the power play, which also gives you a little bit more offensive confidence. I thought he's done. I still think he is a little bit more, maybe a little bit more than a little bit to go in the D zone, but a much improved hockey player. Seen him take major strides this year.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a guy just gain a little bit of confidence, and it maybe goes a long way. All right, Tim Saunders, Todd Fedoruk, they've got the countdown to face-off, followed by the Penguins and Flyers first period action. You've been listening. Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.